Hi, my name is James. Welcome to King's Fan Woodworking. Today we're going to tackle this footrest for the Adirondack chair. This has been a heavily requested item, and if you've already bought the plans for the chair or the rocker, the plans for this are absolutely free. You probably already know that spring is right around the corner, and there's no better time to start prepping for the spring and summer sale than right now. Outdoor furniture, and specifically Adirondack chairs, are without a doubt the #1 selling woodworking projects of all time. Our Adirondack chair is completely unique, with compound curves in the back and the seat. There isn't anything else like it on the market. And what looks like a complex project is actually a relatively easy build, and it's great for a beginner. I have highly detailed videos that show you exactly how every piece goes together, and it doesn't take much woodworking experience or very many tools to accomplish it. We have the adult chair, we have the adult rocking chair, we also have a children's chair, which is pretty unique, but it looks exactly like the adult chairs. It's just smaller in scale, but you don't have to plane down or thin out any of the wood. The chair's just been redesigned to accommodate the full lumber thicknesses. There's also a children's rocker in the works that will be out in a few weeks. And for the first time ever, we're actually having a sale on our plans. We've put together this package. We call it our Ultimate Outdoor Furniture Package, which includes all of the Adirondack chairs. It includes the coffee table, as well as the end table, and even a dining size outdoor patio picnic table. And the package is 1/3 off the regular price. This includes a full set of every plan, and for all of the chairs, it includes the heavy cardstock templates. And there's one more thing that we're doing. If you already own one of these plans, but you buy the package anyway, you can substitute that for any other plan that we have, no charge. So you can pick a plan, even if you have one of our $10 plans and you see a plan on our website that's $20, we'll swap it. So if you buy this package and you have 1 or 2 or 3 of the plans already that you've purchased, we can look that up and we'll allow you to swap that for any other plan that you like. There's a link in the description below if you're thinking of getting this. You can also email me with any questions you have. And if you buy it and find out later that you have one of these plans, no problem. Email me, let me know. I'll look it up, and I'll send you whatever else you want to trade that for. All right, so let's jump into the build of this footrest. This is actually a pretty fun little project. Okay, so the first thing you'll do is just print your plans out. If you have bought the chair in the past, I've actually already emailed you the plans, so this probably isn't news to you. It's not likely that I missed anybody, but if I did, no problem. They're for free on the website. I'll put a link to that down below in the description. And the first thing we're going to do is just make this curved piece. This is the only curved piece in the project, and every other piece is straight and super easy. But I've made the curved piece really easy here. You don't need a template for it. But I kind of created 2 little paper templates to help you out, and I'll show you how to put these together. And this is one way that you can kind of ensure that they become perfect. If this isn't good enough for you and you decide that you'd like to have a wooden template, my friend Michael Long with MK Designs and Fine Woodworking, he makes wooden templates for all of our Adirondack chairs, and he'll make one for this as well. I'll put a link to that in the description down below, should you decide that this is not enough for you. So basically so this is the bottom side of the curved leg, and this will be the top end of the curved leg, and I've basically cut the leg portion out of this, and I've folded the pattern down on the rectangular lines, and I'm just going to kind of tape it in place, and that's going to show us where to trace out the leg. I have dimensions of the leg on the plan, but this kind of makes it super easy if you follow this. And once you make one, then the first one that you make will just be a template for all the others that you want to make. So if you've got a dozen chairs, just make one of these and use it as a template to make all the rest. So I just got a little thin, flexible piece of wood here. It's just like a piece of 1/4 inch plywood that's cut about 1/8 of an inch thick. And we'll just kind of follow that contour and trace it. And then we'll just bend it around the inside contour as well. Any thin piece of wood will do this. You might even have a yardstick or something you can bend around here. And I'm just doing it with a marker to make it a little bit more visible to the camera. And then we'll trace it, the remainder of it out. And it doesn't have to be exact as long as it's close. This whole thing, if it's off by even 1/4 of an inch, it wouldn't make a difference in the world. The footrest will still work perfectly, and you would never know the difference. So I didn't, quite trace it perfectly there, but we're going to fix that right now. I didn't mention it, but hopefully you noticed that I did start with a 2x6 and I cut it to the full length of this piece, which is 25.5 inches, before I stuck the template on there. And then I'm going to take it over to the bandsaw. Just like the videos for the chairs, you can also cut this with a jigsaw. It's slower, but if you take your time, it's just as accurate. Luckily, there are no compound curves or anything like that on this. It's just a simple cut that just follows the curve. One of the reasons this took a while to get out was because we do a lot of other work. We build custom furniture and do a lot of corporate work. We do a lot of hammers, our Thor's hammer woodworking mallets. It's kind of become a popular gift in the corporate world. And we just finished another batch of 50 of these here, and I actually have a number left over. If there's anybody interested in picking one up, I will sell them for half price on the website. I'll put a link to that in the description down below as well. They'll be half price until this batch is gone. Then they go back to the regular price. But that's something there if you're interested in that. All right, so once that's cut out, that's what it looks like. And of course, that's a little rough whether you cut it on the bandsaw or the jigsaw, so I like to smooth it with a belt sander. I put 36 grit on the belt sander, so it literally takes 30 seconds to smooth this out. You're just looking for a smooth arc without rough bumps from the bandsaw. And we'll do the same thing on the inside. We'll just smooth that out and kind of get rid of all of the rough bumps that are made from the bandsaw. And that's it. So that's going to become our template piece now. So we're going to use that to trace another one. And if I had a whole bunch to do, I would use that same one to trace all of them. In fact, I might even keep one aside to keep as a permanent template, or even cut one of these out of plywood. You know, use that the same measuring method with the templates and the paper templates, and cut one out of plywood and keep that if I was going to continue to build these. And we'll just trace this out, and we're going to carry that back over to the bandsaw, and then I'm going to put them both together. They're actually together with double-sided tape, and you can see they're not perfect. They're not exactly the same. These are so close, it probably doesn't make any difference, but I would like for them to be perfect, so my footstool doesn't sit cockeyed, so I'm going to sand them. I have them taped together, and I'm going to go back to my belt sander with 36 grit and just go back and forth smoothly over the whole thing until I can see that they're both at the exact same level. And then I'll tilt this up on end, and I'll do the same thing there. If you don't have double-sided tape, you could clamp these together, but double-sided tape is not very expensive. In fact, I'll put a link to the tape that I use and all the tools I use for this and supplies and stuff like that in the description below in case you need some of that. And once I'm done with the belt sander, I'm going to jump on it with the random orbit sander, because the belt sander is very aggressive, obviously, at 36 grit. So I'll jump over to the belt sander and get it nice and smooth and get rid of some of the scratches from the 36 grit. And we'll pull off the double-sided tape. And this is not a very pretty piece of redwood. I can see that now. It looked better when it wasn't on camera. All right, well, there's the two legs. And we're going to route them. I'm just going to route the bottom of each leg, and then the foot portion, the portion that sits on the ground. That's the foot portion. Because when it slides around, if it were square, it might chip out or flake off. All right, so I have some old pieces of 2x8 here. What I'm doing now is I'm just kind of ripping these into 1.5 by 1.5 squares for the slats that go on top of the footrest. Now, if I didn't have this, I would just go buy, a new piece. I'd probably just buy a couple of 2x6s would be all you really need for the whole project, or maybe 3 or 4 2x4s. All right, once I have those ripped out, I'm going to route them as well. I'm going to route the two sides, and I'm going to route the ends. There's a 3/8 inch radius round over bit, and then I'm going to sand everything down. I'm just going to stop sanding at 120 grit. And I'm going to use another piece of old wood that I had sitting out there to make some 2x4s. So a single 2x4 would do for the 3 straight boards, but I don't have a 2x4 and I don't want to go buy one. So I'm just ripping these things 3.5 inches wide So I'm going to consider these my 2x4s. If you have anything laying around, that would work fine. If you need to go to the store, you just need to get one 2x4 for these. A couple of 2x6s would do it all, or 2x6 and a 2x4 for the whole project. All right, so I'm going to cut the end there at 10 degrees. That's in the plans also. And then I'm going to measure it from the long angle of the cut down 14.5 inches, I think is what that is. And I'm going to go ahead and set it with my other one. I'm going to set them together, and I'm going to bring the blade over till it just kisses the top one there. Make sure they're flush on that side. They are. And then I'll cut them. And now I know my two back legs are the exact same length. Those will be the back legs. And then I'm going to cut the cross piece that goes in between them. And I've got to put a bevel. I think the cross piece is 23.5 inches long. It's just a piece of 2x4. And then this bevel I'm actually cutting at 15 degrees, so a little steeper than the 10. 10 degrees would probably work, but I found that it kind of got in the way if it wasn't exact. So 15 is a little steeper, no big deal. All right, so I've laid these out, drawn a straight line, and marked the centers of the straight lines. And this is going to tell me where to pre-drill. That way when I'm all done, all of my screw holes are in kind of a neat line, and it looks just a little bit better. You could plug these if you want to. You could probably pocket screw them from the bottom if you wanted to. There's a lot of things that you could do. I'm just going to leave it rustic looking, like outdoor furniture, like the stuff that we typically use here. Okay, now let's set up to assemble this leg unit, front and back legs. So I've got a square clamped to the vertical leg, so I know it's vertical. And then I want to make sure the front leg and the back leg come together at that corner. And then we'll clamp everything still. And then we'll put in one screw, or I guess we'll drill one hole, and then we'll put in one screw. I don't want to move the clamps or do anything yet. I want to make sure everything stays put exactly how I have it. And then we'll just drill and put in one more screw on the other side. And now I can go about removing the clamps one at a time and putting a screw in those. And if you follow the same method when you put yours together, it'll come out perfect. The leg is square, and the top peak corner of that leg, the front and back leg, they meet on that left side. And that's what matters. That's what makes this achieve the right altitude and the right curve, the right arc. Everything happens if you do that. So that's how we put one together. And for the second one, I'm going to do something really similar. I'm going to clamp these pieces together. This is the front leg that kind of curves outward. It curves away from the chair, so we're calling that the front leg. It's in front of the back one. We're going to clamp them together so that they're perfect, and then we're going to put this on. And here again, we're going to square that leg. And this screw is actually technically coming from the back side. So I'm just going to put one in. This is going to hold its position for us, so that we can unclamp it and then put the other screws in. So I want to make sure I put the screw in nice and tight. And when I do unclamp it and move it, I want to be really careful not to let it wiggle around. Since it's just a single screw, it could move. So you might put a pair of screws if you're worried about it. But we're going to be real careful and set it down without banging it around. And so it'll keep the same orientation and it won't move. And I will put in 4 holes and 4 more screws, and that's going to match the outside of the other leg. That front leg goes on the outside of the back leg. So I kind of have the two outsides facing in there for the assembly phase. Like that. They don't go like that, but that's how I put them together. And now you can see I've got them set up correctly with them on the outside. And this is my middle board, the front cross piece that I was talking about, with the slightly steeper bevel angle there. So we want to set everything up here before we screw anything together the same way. We want to put a square on these legs. And we want to clamp all the pieces together to make sure they're where we want them. It's important to have squares on both legs. And I'm assembling this on our assembly table, which I know has a dead flat true surface. That's going to make sure that this footrest, all 4 legs, perfectly hit the ground, nice and even and neat. And you have to have a Thor's hammer in order to make this work. But I've tapped it down so that that board does not stick above the top. So that's why we cut it a little bit steeper, just to make sure it fits nicely and we can raise it up fairly high. And while it's clamped, I'll get the screws in that I can get in. And then we'll move the clamps and we'll get the other screw in. So this is a pretty important piece here. This kind of prevents some of the racking that might occur with a footstool. The cross pieces that go across the top of it do make a big difference because there's a lot of them and they all have screws, so they're all contributing to add against the racking. But this cross piece is probably the most important individual piece. So I'm going to put a pair of screws in here as well. Once again, if you don't like the look of these screws, you could put all of these screws in from the back side. I'm just building this in a way that's nice and easy for everybody to see, and you guys can customize it and make it as fancy as you want. You can hide your screws, you can plug them, you can put them in from the back, you can pocket screw it, do anything you like. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in now. The very frontmost one is wider. And I actually have a 7/64 inch drill bit here, which is about the size of the shank of this 2.5 inch deck screw. And it's a little bit longer, so I'm drilling that through so that it goes into the front leg and kind of gives me a little pre-hole or a hole into the front leg, so when the screw goes in, it doesn't split it. Because I'm putting a bunch of screws in a row, one obviously for every one of these boards all the way down, and I don't want to be trying to split that board all the way down. So I'm going to make sure that this pre-drill bit goes down into the leg itself. And the spacers, I keep these 1/16 inch spacers. I made lots of them a long time ago, and I can just use them for whatever I want. Since this is going to have 1/8 inch space everywhere, you see that top piece was just kind of clamped in there to hold it straight for me. So when I worked my way to the bottom, it didn't get too close together. But so I've got 2 of these 16th inch spacers here, since I'm trying to achieve 1/8 of an inch. And decided this thing went so fast I didn't have time to explain it. The whole project is quick. I think it probably took 60 minutes, and that was with filming. So it's a real simple project, and sanding was the majority of that time. And that's really all there is to it. But I did want to take a second to show you this design. This was actually sent in to us by a viewer, Damon Ginty, I think about 8 months ago or so. And when we were designing ours, and I thought this looked so perfect, we borrowed very heavily from that. Or maybe I should say we copied that. But he's got a great design here, and that's kind of the inspiration as to where this came from. So I thought I would show that off. Thanks again, Damon. And to everyone else, thanks for watching.